A woman's shaking voice echoed through the ancient stone courtroom, while every wolf in the Crescent Night Pack watched in silence. Kira could barely breathe as blood dripped from her bitten palm onto the sacred floor. The truth bond was already active. One lie under pack law could kill her instantly. Yet when the High Elder asked if Alpha Philip murdered his own father for power, she said yes. The entire court exploded in rage. Philip never defended himself. He only stared at her with wounded golden eyes, like the betrayal hurt more than the sentence waiting for him. Then the judgment came. Exile beyond the dead border. A punishment no Alpha had ever survived. But before the guards dragged him away in chains, Philip turned back toward Kira and spoke words that haunted her for the next 7 years. You just condemned the only wolf willing to die for this pack. And now he was back. If you enjoy emotional werewolf stories filled with betrayal, revenge, secrets, and powerful twists, then subscribe to the channel right now. Every subscription helps these stories reach more people, and missing the next part might mean missing the truth hidden behind the lies. Kira had spent 7 years trying to forget Philip's face. She failed every single day. Even after becoming one of the most respected healers in the Crescent Night Pack, the memory still followed her like a curse. She remembered the chains around his wrists, the blood on his mouth after the elders beat him before exile, the disbelief in his eyes when she testified against him. Some nights she still woke up hearing his voice. Not angry, not hateful, just disappointed. That was always worse. Rain poured heavily over the village as Kira closed the wooden windows of the healing house. The wind carried a strange scent through the air. Wet earth, pine trees, and something else. A scent she knew too well. Her body froze instantly. No! Her wolf stirred violently beneath her skin. Philip. The door suddenly burst open. Lax stumbled inside breathing hard, rainwater dripping from his black cloak. Kira, he said urgently. The border guards are dead. Fear tightened her chest. Rogues. Lax looked directly into her eyes. He returned. The room became silent except for the storm outside. Kira gripped the edge of the table to steady herself. For years the pack believed Philip died beyond the dead border. Nobody survived exile there. The forests were cursed, filled with rogue clans and creatures older than the packs themselves. Yet part of her always believed he was alive, because her bond with him never disappeared. Weak, distant, painful, but alive. When did he cross the border? She whispered. An hour ago. He didn't sneak in either. He walked through the northern gate openly. Kira's stomach twisted. That sounded exactly like Philip. Fearless, proud, reckless. Lax moved closer, lowering his voice. He brought wolves with him. How many? Too many. Kira looked away. Years ago, Lax had been Philip's closest beta, loyal to him beyond reason. But after the exile, Lax swore loyalty to the new Alpha Council instead. Or at least that was what everyone believed. Sometimes Kira noticed the guilt hidden behind his calm expression. Sometimes she wondered if he hated her for what happened. A loud bell suddenly rang across the village. Once, twice, 3 times. Emergency council gathering. Lax cursed under his breath. They're already preparing for war. Kira quickly grabbed her cloak, but Lax caught her wrist before she could leave. You shouldn't go near him. She slowly looked at him. You think I'm afraid? I think he has every reason to destroy this pack. The words settled heavily between them, because they were true. Kira remembered the trial clearly. Philip stood alone against the entire council while Elder Mara led the accusations. She claimed Philip poisoned his father to seize alpha power early. Witnesses came forward. Guards gave statements. Even false evidence was presented before the sacred court. But Kira's testimony destroyed him completely, because she was his fated mate. And under pack law, mates could sense each other's lies. When she accused him publicly, the entire pack believed no mate would ever betray her true alpha unless his crime was real. Nobody knew the truth. The council threatened to execute her younger brother if she refused. She chose her family over Philip, and it destroyed both of them. Thunder shook the sky as they hurried toward the council hall. Villagers crowded the streets nervously. Wolves whispered in panic. Mothers pulled children indoors. Warriors armed themselves near the gates. The Crescent Knight Pack had not seen peace since Philip's exile. The Alpha Council ruled through fear now. Taxes increased every year. Public punishments became common. Wolves disappeared for questioning and never returned. Yet Elder Mara always blamed the instability on Philip's past leadership. According to her, the former Alpha poisoned the pack long before his exile. Kira stopped walking when she noticed fresh claw marks carved into the stone walls near the hall entrance. Not random damage. A symbol. 3 vertical slashes crossing a crescent moon. Her breath caught instantly. Lax noticed too. He's marking territory already. No, Kira whispered. That symbol means something else. Philip used to carve that mark secretly across hidden places during their youth. He once told her it represented wolves willing to stand against corruption inside the pack. At the time, she thought it was meaningless rebellion. Now it appeared openly on the council walls, almost like a warning. Inside the hall, chaos erupted from every corner. Council members shouted over each other while armed guards lined the room nervously. At the center platform stood Elder Mara, dressed in silver ceremonial robes. Age had changed her appearance little. Her sharp gray eyes still carried cold authority. The moment she saw Kira, her expression hardened. You took too long. Kira ignored the insult. Where is he? Mara's mouth tightened. Outside the Eastern Territory. He demanded a meeting before sunrise. With what authority? Lax asked. With the authority of an Alpha returning for what belongs to him. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. Even after 7 years, nobody could fully deny Philip's claim. Bloodline authority mattered deeply under pack law. Since his exile was never followed by execution, some wolves still considered him the rightful Alpha. Mara slammed her staff against the floor. He is a rogue criminal. Nothing more. The doors suddenly opened again. A wounded guard rushed inside. He's here. Every conversation stopped instantly. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Heavy footsteps echoed slowly from outside the chamber. One step at a time. Calm. Controlled. Terrifying. Then Philip entered the hall. Kira forgot how to breathe. He looked nothing like the young Alpha exiled years ago. This Philip was harder. Larger. Scarred. Dark clothing covered his broad frame while a black wolf fur cloak rested over his shoulders. A long scar crossed one side of his neck. His golden eyes held no warmth anymore, and behind him stood at least 20 wolves dressed like soldiers. Silent, disciplined, deadly. The room trembled under the pressure of his Alpha aura. Several guards lowered their heads instinctively. Philip's gaze moved across the chamber before finally landing on Kira. Everything inside her shattered at once. Pain, relief, fear, love. His expression never changed, but his wolf reacted instantly to her presence. She felt it through the bond. Years of buried emotion slammed into her chest so hard she nearly stumbled backward. Philip slowly approached the center of the hall. No guards attacked? He asked calmly. Nobody answered. A faint smile touched his lips. So the pack still remembers who trained them. Mara stepped forward furiously. You dare return after your crimes? Philip looked at her like she was insignificant. I returned because the pack is dying. The pack survived because you left. No, he replied quietly. It survived despite you. Tension exploded through the room. Several warriors stepped closer to Mara protectively. But Philip's soldiers did not react. That frightened Kira more than aggression would have. Because disciplined wolves only stayed calm when fully confident they could win. Mara lifted her chin proudly. You have no authority here. Philip's gaze swept across the council members. I challenge the legality of my exile. Gasps spread instantly. Under ancient pack law, an exiled Alpha could demand retrial if corruption influenced the original judgment. But no wolf had ever attempted it successfully. Mara laughed coldly. You expect this council to reopen your case? I expect the truth. His eyes shifted slowly toward Kira. And this time, I want the witness to speak freely. Her heartbeat nearly stopped. The room turned toward her immediately. Kira felt trapped beneath dozens of staring eyes. Mara spoke sharply before she could respond. The witness already testified under truth bond. Philip took another step forward. And yet the bond never killed her. Silence swallowed the chamber. Kira's blood ran cold. Because he was right. Sacred truth bonds punished direct lies with unbearable pain. Sometimes death. Yet during the trial she survived her testimony. At the time she convinced herself it was because she mixed truth with lies carefully enough. But now doubt returned stronger than ever. Philip's voice lowered dangerously. Ask yourselves why. Mara suddenly slammed her staff down again. Enough. This meeting ends now. No, Philip said. The single word carried enough alpha power to shake the hall itself. Several candles shattered instantly. Even Mara stepped backward. Philip's eyes darkened. You exiled me for protecting this pack from enemies you were too blind to see. Mara's face paled for the first time. Kira noticed it immediately. So did Lax. Philip continued slowly. The threat is coming sooner than expected. One council member frowned nervously. What threat? Philip looked toward the storm outside. The hollow. Fear flickered across older wolves instantly. Kira felt confused. The hollow was considered ancient pack folklore. Stories parents used to frighten children. Shadow creatures that consumed entire wolf bloodlines during ancient wars. Not real. At least that was what everyone believed. Mara recovered quickly. You expect us to believe fairy tales now? Philip's expression remained cold. I watched them erase 3 northern clans within 2 winters. Silence followed. No one laughed. Because Philip never lied. Not once in his life. Kira remembered that painfully well. A younger council member spoke carefully. If this is true, why disappear for 7 years? Philip's eyes hardened. Because Crescent Night Pack was weak. The insult angered several wolves immediately. But he continued before anyone interrupted. I needed warriors capable of surviving what's coming. I built alliances beyond the border. Trained rogues. United broken clans. Lax stared at him carefully now. You created an army. Yes. Mara pointed accusingly. To invade us. Philip finally looked directly at her again. To save you. For the first time since entering the hall, genuine emotion appeared in his voice. Exhaustion. Pain. Warning. Kira's wolf stirred anxiously beneath her skin. Something about Philip felt different. Not cruel. Burdened. As though he carried years of terrible knowledge alone. Then his eyes returned to Kira once more. And everything became personal again. You testified against me, he said quietly. The hall remained completely silent. Kira forced herself to stand still despite her trembling hands. Philip walked closer until only a few feet separated them. You looked into my eyes while condemning me. Pain flashed across her face. I had no choice. You always had a choice. That's easy for you to say. His jaw tightened. You think exile was the hardest part? Kira swallowed hard. You came back for revenge. No. The answer surprised her. Philip leaned slightly closer. I came back because you're all about to die. A distant horn suddenly echoed outside the village walls. Long, deep, ancient. Every wolf inside the chamber froze instantly. Philip's soldiers reacted first, immediately reaching for weapons. Philip turned toward the sound with alarm in his eyes. Real alarm. Not fear for himself. Fear for everyone. Then another horn echoed across the mountains. Closer this time. Philip whispered one sentence that made the entire room go cold. They found us. The third horn echoed across the mountains like a warning from the dead. Panic spread through the council hall instantly. Warriors rushed toward the exits while frightened voices filled the chamber. Several elders began arguing at once, demanding the gates be sealed. But Philip stood completely still, listening, counting. Kira watched his face carefully and realized something terrifying. He already knew what those horns meant. Lax moved toward him cautiously. How far are they? Philip answered without looking at him. Too close. Mara scoffed loudly, trying to regain control of the room. We are not surrendering this pack to ghost stories and rogue tricks. Philip finally turned toward her again, and this time the restraint in his expression was gone. You still think this is about power? It always was. No, he said sharply. That is why you failed as a leader. The insult struck hard. Several council members shifted uncomfortably because deep down, many of them already questioned Mara's rule. Hunger had spread through the lower districts over the last 2 winters. Warriors disappeared during border patrols. Entire villages stopped sending trade. And Mara always responded the same way. More punishments. More fear. Never answers. Another horn sounded. Closer. This time the ground beneath the hall vibrated faintly. Kira felt cold fear crawl up her spine. What are they? She whispered. Philip's gaze softened slightly when he looked at her. The hollow are not wolves. They wear wolf bodies after killing them. The room fell silent again. They hunt strong bloodlines first, he continued. Alphas, healers, children born under moon blessings. Kira remembered hearing old stories about creatures stealing voices and memories from dead wolves. She used to laugh at those tales beside the fire as a child. Now nobody laughed. Lax crossed his arms. If these things are real, why attack now? Philip's expression darkened. Because somebody weakened the border seals. Every eye slowly turned toward Mara. Her face hardened immediately. You accuse me again? Philip stepped closer to the center platform. 7 years ago, my father discovered ancient tunnels beneath this territory. Tunnels connected to hollow territory beyond the dead border. Kira stared at him in shock. You never told anyone. I tried. His eyes moved briefly toward Mara. She buried the reports. Mara slammed her staff down furiously. Because your father had become paranoid. Philip's voice rose for the first time. He died 3 days later. Silence crushed the room. Kira's breathing became uneven. During the original trial, Mara claimed Philip murdered his father after arguing about leadership. Witnesses swore they heard threats between them days before the Alpha's death. But now pieces no longer fit together. Philip slowly faced the council. My father wasn't killed for power. He was killed because he wanted the tunnels sealed permanently. Mara pointed toward him accusingly. You have no proof. Philip reached inside his cloak and dropped an old silver object onto the council floor. Kira recognized it instantly. The former Alpha's ceremonial crest. Gasps spread through the chamber. Philip spoke quietly. My father gave this to me before he died. Mara's confidence flickered. He told me somebody inside the council was helping outsiders enter our lands. Lax frowned deeply. Outsiders. Philip looked toward the storm beyond the hall. The hollow need invitations. Kira's chest tightened. You mean someone opened the border willingly? Philip said nothing, but his silence answered enough. Mara suddenly laughed bitterly. Convenient story. Very dramatic. Philip's eyes narrowed. You know what happens when hollow creatures fully cross into a territory? Mara folded her arms. Nothing, because they do not exist. Without warning, Philip grabbed a nearby guard by the throat and yanked him forward violently. The room erupted in alarm. But then Kira saw it. The guard's eyes, completely black. Not brown, not wolf gold. Black like endless darkness. The guard snarled unnaturally before his jaw stretched wider than possible. Several wolves screamed. Philip snapped the creature's neck instantly. Its body collapsed onto the stone floor, twitching violently. Dark smoke began leaking from its mouth. The entire hall recoiled in horror. Kira nearly stumbled backward. That's impossible. Philip released the corpse coldly. No, that is hollow possession. Panic exploded everywhere. Warriors immediately backed away from one another fearfully. Some council members rushed toward the exits while others stared at the dead creature in disbelief. Mara herself looked shaken now. Only slightly, but enough for Kira to notice. Philip's soldiers spread through the chamber carefully, securing doors and windows. We don't have much time, Philip said. Once they infiltrate a territory, they weaken it from inside first. Lax stared at the dead guard. How many more are infected? That depends on how long they've been here. Kira suddenly remembered something. The missing patrols. The strange disappearances. Wolves returning from hunts with memory gaps. Fear settled heavily in her stomach. Philip turned sharply toward Mara. Tell them what you found in the tunnels. Mara remained silent. Tell them. Her jaw tightened stubbornly. Kira stepped forward slowly. Mara, what did you see? For the first time in years, uncertainty appeared in the older woman's face. Then finally she spoke. Bodies. The room stayed silent. Ancient bodies buried beneath the mountain tunnels. Mara continued quietly. Thousands of them. Philip nodded grimly. The first Hollow War. Kira stared between them. You knew about this? Mara looked away bitterly. Your father wanted to evacuate the entire territory. He believed the seals beneath the mountain were weakening. Philip's expression darkened further. But you refused because abandoning the territory would weaken the council's authority. Mara snapped back defensively. I refused because panic would destroy the pack. No, Philip replied coldly. Your pride would. The insult hit harder because it sounded true. Kira's mind spun painfully. Everything she believed for 7 years suddenly felt unstable. Philip took the blame for his father's death. Accepted exile. Disappeared willingly. Not for revenge. For preparation. Then another terrible realization struck her. You engineered your own exile. Philip finally looked directly at her. Yes. Pain flooded her expression instantly. You used me. His face tightened slightly. I protected you. You let me believe you were innocent while the entire pack hated me for condemning you. You were safer hating me. Kira's voice cracked. You should have trusted me. For the first time since returning, genuine regret appeared in Philip's eyes. I wanted to. That answer hurt more than anger would have. Before Kira could respond, violent screams erupted outside the hall. Everyone turned instantly. A blood-covered warrior burst through the doors gasping for breath. They're inside the village. Chaos exploded again. Philip moved immediately. Barricade the western streets. Keep civilians indoors. His soldiers obeyed without hesitation. Even some pack warriors instinctively followed his commands too. Mara noticed, and hated it. You are not Alpha here, she snapped. Philip ignored her completely. Kira, stay inside the hall. She glared at him. You lost the right to order me around 7 years ago. Without waiting for permission, she rushed toward the doors. Lax cursed and followed after her. Outside, the village had descended into terror. Smoke rose from several homes near the northern district. Wolves ran through muddy streets carrying weapons and injured civilians. Children cried while bells rang continuously from the watchtowers. Then Kira saw the creatures. At first they looked human, but wrong. Their movements twisted unnaturally. Their limbs bent strangely while black veins spread across pale skin. Some still wore pack clothing taken from dead wolves. One creature lifted its head slowly toward Kira. Its face belonged to a missing border scout, but the eyes were completely black. The thing smiled unnaturally wide, then charged. Lax shifted instantly into wolf form and slammed into the creature before it reached her. The impact shattered a market stall nearby. Kira ran toward injured civilians instead. Years of healer training took over automatically. A young boy lay bleeding beside an overturned cart while his mother sobbed beside him. Kira dropped to her knees quickly. He'll live, she assured her. But even as she worked, screams echoed everywhere. The hollow creatures moved through the village like infection itself. Fast, violent, merciless. Then suddenly, a massive black wolf leaped across the rooftops above. Philip, his enormous wolf form crashed directly into 2 hollow creatures near the well. Bones shattered instantly beneath his weight. Kira stared despite herself. He was larger than any alpha wolf she had ever seen. Dark fur covered in rainwater and scars. Golden eyes glowing fiercely in the storm. The entire battlefield seemed to shift around his presence. Philip tore through the creatures with terrifying precision, protecting civilians while commanding warriors through growls and signals. Not reckless, controlled, experienced. This was not the arrogant young Alpha she once knew. This wolf had survived war. Lax returned to human form beside her, breathing heavily. "There are too many," he warned. Philip shifted back nearby, blood dripping down one arm. "We only need to survive until moonrise." Kira frowned. "Why?" "Because they fear moonfire." Before she could ask further, a loud explosion shook the eastern side of the village. Flames burst upward into the rain-filled sky. Philip's expression changed instantly. The tunnels. He sprinted toward the eastern district without another word. Kira followed before anyone could stop her. They reached the old mountain shrine within minutes. Smoke poured from shattered stone stairs leading underground. Several dead warriors lay scattered near the entrance. And standing among them was Mara, holding a blood-covered ceremonial dagger. Philip slowed dangerously. "What did you do?" Mara's face looked pale and shaken now, but determined. They were already breaking through. Philip stared at the destroyed entrance in horror. "You opened the seal completely." Kira's heartbeat stopped. Mara looked toward them desperately. "You don't understand. The Hollow promised peace if we surrendered one bloodline." Silence. Cold, terrible silence. Philip's voice became deadly quiet. "You sacrificed wolves to them." Mara's eyes filled with panic. "I was trying to save the pack." "No," Philip said. "You were trying to save yourself." The mountain suddenly trembled beneath their feet. Deep below the tunnels, something enormous moved. Not one creature. Many. Kira stepped backward instinctively. Then she heard it. Whispers. Hundreds of voices rising from beneath the earth. Ancient. Hungry. Coming closer. Philip slowly unsheathed the silver blade at his side. When he looked back at Kira, the anger in his eyes was gone. Only urgency remained. "If we fail tonight," he said quietly, "there will be no pack left to save." The mountain trembled again. This time the ground cracked beneath the shrine steps. Warriors stumbled backward as black smoke poured from the broken tunnel entrance like living darkness. The whispers beneath the earth grew louder, filling the storm with voices that did not sound human. Kira felt her wolf recoil in terror. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but Philip stepped forward instead. Rain streamed down his face while silver light reflected across his blade. Behind him, his soldiers formed a defensive line around the shrine entrance. Not one of them retreated. Lax moved beside Philip, breathing hard. "How long until moonrise?" "Less than an hour." Lax cursed softly. "That's too long." Mara suddenly grabbed Kira's arm desperately. "You're a healer. You can still fix this." Kira stared at her in disbelief. "Fix this?" Mara's voice shook. "They promised the Hollow would spare the pack if I helped weaken the seals." Philip's eyes darkened with disgust. "You trusted creatures that consume entire bloodlines." "I had no choice," Mara snapped. Kira pulled away from her sharply. "No, you did." The words hit harder because Kira finally understood them herself. 7 years ago, she made the same excuse. "I had no choice." But choices still existed. Fear simply made them painful. A terrible scream echoed from inside the tunnels. Then something crawled out. The creature looked like a wolf at first glance, but its body was stretched unnaturally long, covered in dark rotting fur. Multiple jaws opened across its neck while Philip shifted instantly. His massive black wolf slammed into the monster before it reached the others. The impact shattered stone pillars nearby. More creatures emerged behind it. Dozens. The battle exploded violently. Rogue soldiers and pack warriors fought side by side against the hollow creatures pouring from the mountain. Claws tore through flesh while screams echoed through the storm. Kira rushed between wounded wolves, using healing herbs and moon water to slow bleeding. But for every injured wolf she treated, 2 more fell nearby. The hollow moved like nightmares. Fast, relentless, impossible to predict. One creature suddenly lunged toward Kira from the shadows. Before she could react, Philip crashed into it midair. The monster slammed against the shrine wall hard enough to crack stone. Philip tore through its throat savagely before shifting back into human form beside her. Blood covered his chest. "You should be farther back." Kira glared despite the chaos around them. "You are bleeding. It's not fatal." "That's not what I asked." For one brief second, something softer passed through his expression. Something familiar. Then another roar interrupted them. A massive hollow creature climbed from the tunnel entrance slowly, towering over the battlefield. Ancient symbols burned across its body, while black smoke curled from its mouth. Even the smaller hollow creatures retreated around it. Philip's face tightened instantly. "The Harbinger." Lax looked horrified. "That thing is leading them?" "Yes." The creature lifted its head toward the sky and released a roar so powerful the entire mountain shook. Several wolves collapsed instantly from the sound alone. Kira covered her ears painfully. Philip grabbed Lax's shoulder urgently. "Keep the smaller creatures away from the civilians." "What about that thing?" Philip's golden eyes hardened. "I'll handle it." Kira immediately stepped in front of him. "No." Philip looked stunned for a moment. "You can't fight that alone." "I've done it before." 7 years ago? The question slipped out before she could stop herself. Philip fell silent. Kira stared at him through the rain. "That's why you accepted exile so easily," she realized. "You already knew this war was coming." Philip looked toward the battlefield. "My father discovered the truth too late. I didn't have that luxury. You could have told me." His jaw tightened painfully. "If you knew the truth, Mara would have killed you." Kira's anger finally cracked. "Do you know what those 7 years did to me?" The battle raged around them while emotions long buried rose violently to the surface. "I hated myself every single day," she continued shakily. "I watched this pack whisper behind my back. I watched children fear me because I testified against my own mate." Philip said nothing, but the guilt in his eyes became impossible to hide. Kira stepped closer. "And the worst part? I still loved you." The words hung heavily between them. Raw. Painful. True. Philip closed his eyes briefly like the confession physically hurt him. "I know." Before either could speak again, the Harbinger attacked. The enormous creature smashed through the battlefield directly toward them. Warriors scattered instantly as black claws ripped through the ground. Philip shoved Kira aside barely in time. The creature struck him hard enough to send him crashing through broken shrine pillars. "Philip!" Kira ran toward him, but the Harbinger blocked her path. Its black eyes locked onto her hungrily. Then it spoke using dozens of overlapping voices. "Moon-bonded blood." Kira froze. The creature smiled wider. "The female carries ancient blood." Philip's expression changed instantly. Fear. Real fear. The Harbinger lunged toward Kira. Philip intercepted it again with a furious roar, shifting midair into wolf form. They crashed together violently across the shrine courtyard. Lax appeared beside Kira quickly. "What does it mean?" She shook her head. "I don't know." But deep inside, her wolf already sensed the truth. Philip had not returned only to save the pack. He returned for her too. The Harbinger finally hurled Philip across the battlefield again. His wolf form slammed against stone brutally before shifting back involuntarily. He struggled to stand. The creature advanced slowly toward him. Victorious. Kira noticed something then. Silver burns spread across the Harbinger's chest where Philip's blade previously struck it. Moon silver. That was the weakness. She grabbed the fallen silver dagger near the shrine steps. Lax immediately realized her plan. Kira, no. But she was already running. The Harbinger turned too late. Kira drove the silver blade directly into its spine with all her strength. The creature screamed. Not loudly, deeply, like something ancient tearing apart beneath the earth itself. Black smoke exploded outward violently. The surrounding hollow creatures suddenly began shrieking in panic. Philip forced himself up immediately. Kira, move! The Harbinger spun toward her wildly, claws slicing across her side before Philip tore into its throat from behind. Together they brought the creature crashing down. Philip grabbed the silver blade from its back and plunged it directly through the monster's skull. The battlefield went silent. For one terrible second, nothing moved. Then every hollow creature across the village began collapsing into black ash, one by one, until only silence remained. Rain continued falling softly over the destroyed shrine. Warriors stood frozen among the ruins. Alive, breathing, safe. Kira suddenly staggered from blood loss. Philip caught her instantly before she hit the ground. Panic crossed his face immediately. "You're hurt. I noticed." His hands pressed carefully against the wound at her side, while his wolf pushed desperately against the mate bond. Kira could feel his fear clearly now. And beneath it, love, still there after everything. Lax approached slowly, staring around the battlefield. "It's over." Philip looked toward the mountain tunnels. "No." Everyone tensed again. But Philip continued quietly. "The Hollow Army is still out there." Kira's heart sank. Then this was only the beginning. Yes. Mara slowly emerged from the ruined shrine behind them. Her silver robes were stained with mud and blood now. For the first time, she no longer looked powerful. Only old. Broken. She looked toward Philip with hollow eyes. "I was wrong." Nobody answered. Mara swallowed painfully. "Your father tried to warn me too." Philip's expression remained cold. "And you silenced him." Tears filled her eyes. "I thought protecting the council mattered more than frightening the pack." Kira looked at her sadly. "That fear destroyed everything anyway." Mara lowered her head. For years she ruled through control and secrecy, believing truth would weaken the pack. Instead, lies nearly destroyed it completely. The surviving warriors slowly began kneeling before Philip. One after another. Pack wolves. Rogue wolves. Even elders. Not from fear. From acceptance. Their alpha had returned. Philip looked uncomfortable beneath their loyalty. Because leadership no longer looked like glory to him. Only responsibility. Lax smirked faintly beside him. "You planned your exile better than most wolves plan their weddings." Philip gave him a tired look. "You always complained too much. And you always kept terrible secrets." For the first time all night, a faint laugh escaped Kira unexpectedly. Philip turned toward her immediately at the sound. The storm was finally beginning to clear above them. Moonlight slowly broke through the clouds, casting silver light across the ruined shrine. Kira looked up weakly. "Looks like moonrise came after all." Philip's expression softened completely then. The walls around him finally cracked. Not the warrior. Not the exile. Not the alpha. Just Philip. He gently touched her face. "I never wanted you to carry that guilt." Kira's eyes filled with tears. "Then stop leaving me alone with it." For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Philip rested his forehead carefully against hers, while their wolves finally settled peacefully beneath the bond that survived 7 years of pain, betrayal, and silence. Not perfect, not healed completely, but alive. And sometimes that was enough to begin again. Weeks later, the Crescent Knight pack slowly started rebuilding. The council system was dissolved entirely. Wolves who abused power faced judgment openly. The tunnels beneath the mountains were sealed with ancient moon markings once more. But everyone understood the truth now. The Hollow would eventually return. And when they did, the pack would face them together this time. Not divided by lies. Kira stood beside Philip one evening overlooking the repaired village walls while children played safely below. "You could still leave," she told him quietly. "Nobody would blame you after everything." Philip looked toward the horizon. "For years I thought protecting the pack meant carrying everything alone." He turned toward her. "I was wrong." Kira smiled softly. That lesson changed more than just him. Because fear had controlled all of them once. Fear of losing power. Fear of losing family. Fear of truth itself. But lies created wounds far deeper than honesty ever could. And sometimes the people who hurt each other most are also the ones trying hardest to protect what they love. That was the tragedy of the Crescent Knight pack. But it also became their second chance.